Welcome to Gunners Are Us, where we are positively Arsenal.
And that we are. And I tell you what, this is, if you're ever looking for a week where you could be positively Arsenal,
Woo!
and I know Man United fans are probably listening, and hey, this isn't all going to be just hatred towards Man United, because there's nothing to be mad about for an Arsenal perspective. So if you're a Man United fan, do not stop listening. We got a lot of Prem talk. We're going to talk impartially about the game. Obviously, we're going to go a little. We're excited, as you would be. As when that Garnacho goal went in, how you felt is how we feel. But we permanently feel that way, whereas you only felt it for mere minutes.
I've still got chills.
And I know Joe cried.
I did.
And I know that that comment I just made seems backhanded, and it was. But what we're going to do is we're going to break down a little bit of Premier League action. We'll break down the predictions, who got what right, talk about some VAR, and then we're going to get into the Man United Arsenal, because, I think that's got to be the most talked about game this season, if not over the last season and this season.
Oh, it's the most talked about game, and not just that. The weather is the most talked about thing right now, because we're all out there shopping for pumpkins and everything Halloween and autumnal. We're sweating.
I am sweating in the booth.
I didn't think I'd be carving a pumpkin in this heat. That's all. Let's be honest.
Yeah, this is it. But I'm hoping if you are listening to this, you're sat in the sun, not sweating like we are.
Yeah.
Maybe in some shade with a pina colada.
Woo!
And you're just relaxing, waiting to hear about, Luton or Chelsea, and then the big game. So we're going to get into it in a moment. Simon is not here again. As last week, he couldn't speak because he had an issue with his throat, and he's still dealing with that. So we are sending our good thoughts to Simon. Hopefully be back next week so we can actually speak on the pod, because after an international break, he might have some things to say about the Arsenal Man United game 10 days later.
We're praying for only ups and no downs.
Yeah, ups and no downs. But he should be back next week. And I did mention that we could do some little instant reactions. We didn't get around to it because Joe was too busy crying, and
it was too much to come down from.
Yeah, I was shaking a little bit, which was a bit odd. So we didn't get around to that. But every single Wednesday, because I know there is a one WWE superstar named Elton Prince, who was very angry he didn't have his Gunners Are Us podcast yesterday. But it is every Wednesday.
It's hump day.
It is. And give us a like, a subscribe, give us a 5-star review. Even if you don't want to listen, tell your friends, just download it. Let us get the downloads. We need to lift those downloads, and then we can start paying for the old podcast feed and all those kind of bits, and that'd be fantastic.
We're just trying to pour out positivity into the world of football and life in general.
Exactly, and Joe's feeling positive because of this reason. So, Premier League predictions last week. We had big games like Luton versus West Ham, Sheffield United, Everton, Brentford, Bournemouth. These giant games.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe, the last couple of weeks, when we've done the predictions, it's kind of felt like he's gone really out of left field. It's kind of worked for him.
I feel like the Premier League's gone kind of out of left field this season so far.
Yeah, so this last week, Simon got 2. I got 2 right out of 10. Joe got 5.
Wow.
So Joe overall has 2 weeks. He's won 2 weeks. I've won 1 week. Simon's won no weeks so far. But overall, Simon's got 10 games right out of a possible 30.
Yep.
I've got 10 games right out of a possible 30.
Yep.
And Joe has 13 out of a possible 30. So it's very close. So there's going to be 2 types of winner this year, like I mentioned last week. Overall, how many weeks did you win? And then how many games did you get right? We'll keep a tally throughout the whole thing. Annoyingly, we missed 1 week. So at the end, it'll be 37 weeks we have right. So maybe what we'll do is we'll pick one random, maybe, I don't know, like Champions League final, something like that. And we'll all predict it. And if you get the score right, if we all go like, let's say it's like Man United versus Bayern Munich, and we all go Man United and it is Man United, then it might come down to who's closest on the score, and then that person could be the one that separates the whole thing.
Maybe we could put bets on, not bets as in like cash, but bets as in like the points we've gained in the season and the amount we want to put on it.
Yeah.
So we can always let's say
a wager.
Like let's say you or Simon is behind, and you want to gain those points back. You can put a certain amount of points back to overtake me.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that. We could do that. So we need to make up for that 1 week that we missed. And we'll find a way around it. Because it'll just feel OCD wise. Yeah. Don't like the fact it's 37 out of 38. But we're already 3 weeks in out of, even though it's been 4 games. But we're not doing any Premier League predictions this week because it's international break. And I'm excited to see, from an Arsenal perspective, seeing Eddie finally up on the
that's great
on the international stage. Saka has just been voted England's Men's Player of the Year.
Wow.
2 years running.
Wow.
Then we've got Rice obviously coming back after that heroic match, which
It's a
we
new
will get
kind
to.
of rice we got now.
It is, and I think there's talk of Ramsdale potentially starting. I know we are biased, but how is Ramsdale not the starting keeper for England? I understand Pope has a good option, but Pickford, it just, I know for example, this week, and we'll talk about this game in a moment.
Yeah.
The Sheffield United versus Everton match. This is almost sums up Pickford. Is he scores an own goal off the back of his head,
Yeah.
and then in the last minute, he does one of the best triple saves I've ever seen, and he follows it up by just taunting the crowd. Like, he's just such a bizarre keeper, and in a generation of quality at England, I just feel like, especially when Southgate, and we could get into Southgate a little bit, wants to play out from the back.
Yeah.
I don't really get why we're not going with someone who plays out from the back for his club team.
I think in recent years we've always kind of relied on one specific goalie to get us through everything. We're quite lucky now, as we've got 3 very prominent goalies who are top goalies in the Premier League. They're all capable of doing random things, as we've seen. Ramsdale can do some random things. Pope definitely can do some random things because of what we saw last season with the handball incident. Pickford definitely very random. But I think we're in a lucky position where we've got a choice of 3 goalies that are all top-notch goalies, but are all capable of a little bit of crazy. Well, like we've said before, goalkeepers are crazy.
Yeah, you got to be crazy to do it in the first place. You're getting the ball hit at you.
Yeah, they're always the biggest characters in the game now.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know. I'm hoping we get to see Ramsdale. But I mean, when you look at England in general right now, and I have my issues with the manager. I think, picking people like Phillips, Maguire, Henderson, there's some odd decisions being made when we've got such amazing young talent. When you look at the midfield, if a club put out Rice, Bellingham, and Foden,
wow,
that is potentially the best midfield in modern football.
Look at what Bellingham's doing at the minute over in Spain.
And look at Rice. And obviously Foden's coming off the bench, but I mean, he's still world class. And then the wingers of Saka and Grealish.
Yeah.
And then Kane up front. Like, when you look at our front 6, that there's nowhere that touches that. There's no international that touches it. There's no club that touches
well,
that.
Any club would die for that team.
Which gets me to the rumour, which Southgate is going to leave after the Euros. And it looks like the FA want to try and get Pep Guardiola in.
Wow.
I think that's the ideal situation, because when you look at a team that, let's say, is Ramsdale, you've got, if it's not Southgate, you've got Ben White.
Yep.
You've got Trent.
Yep.
Tomori.
Yep.
Stones.
Yep.
Mark Gay.
Colwell's coming through now.
Colwell is an unbelievable player. You've got Chilwell, Reece James. The
depth and quality is ridiculous.
And then you look at that front 6 that we just mentioned, but we haven't mentioned people like Elise, Eze, Eddie. Yeah. I'm sure I'm missing a load, but Pep Guardiola with that squad,
that's wild.
That's what needs to happen. It needs to be it doesn't have to be Pep, but a world-class manager who's forward-thinking, as opposed to Southgate doing what he's doing.
Yeah,
I would love to see that, and I really do think they should be winning, major trophies.
Yeah, well, any club with that group of players will be winning major trophies with the right manager. I think I don't want to throw too much shade on Southgate, because I think when he came in, he did turn it from what it was before, where you'd have a manager that would just play the same names, same big names, regardless of form. He did bring in the new crop, which we are very grateful for. But I think he's kind of outstayed it now, and he's starting to get that pressure, the same pressure that all the past managers had, but they feel like they have to add these big names because, let's say, we haven't won anything yet with that young crop, which I don't think is any reason to change it. I think they're just young, they're learning, they're going to get there eventually. But I think he has got to that point now where he is relying on the big names over the talent, the young talent that's coming through now. And I think a change of manager, timing wise, no shade on Southgate.
He's done a great job.
I think it's timing. I think now's the time to take that young crop of players into the next level.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just ready for it. And I'm not a big fan of international breaks. I hate this.
Yeah.
Every season, you wait all summer because you want the Premier League back. And then after 3 or 4 games, there's going to be a gap. And you're just going to be like, oh, my God.
And also the risk of injury.
Yeah, and already Klopp and Pep are doing their thing. They've pulled Trent. They've pulled Grealish.
Yeah.
This is what I think Arteta needs to get better at, is just pulling people like Saka, who might need a rest. Like, Saka's looked pretty lax the last couple of weeks. Like, maybe he's due a break. And I know, obviously, people would say, we're 4 games in, how does he need a break? But, I mean, I don't know, really. But
it's a tough balance, because you do want these players to gain that experience. The experience, because it's a different game. Like, they're going away for this random game in between all the other games, and they will gain a lot of experience, and slightly different playing style, learning to bond with these players that they haven't played with all season. I think there is a positive to it, but I also think the Premier League's too big a deal now that you can't be risking injury. You can't be risking the loss of good players just so that they can play for the international team.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. And I know Arteta's driven into Saka, the best players in the world. People like Messi, they play every 3 days, and they did that until Messi's still doing it,
which is very true. Yeah,
and the minute you put into their head, oh, you've got to be careful about injuries. You got to be, and obviously, at the end of the day, I think injuries are somewhat genetic. Like you look at someone like Reece James, can't catch a break.
Yeah,
but then you look at someone like Messi, or the way Saka has been so far, touch wood. Certain people are just, Rice, for example, he hasn't missed a game in 7 years.
They're robust players.
Yeah, and like Xhaka was similar to that. They're just it's a genetic makeup in their body that means they get less muscle strains, less stuff like that.
Yeah.
Impact stuff, you just can't do anything about. Like, if eventually someone goes through Rice and he tears an ACL, he's going to have hamstring injuries, he's going to have thigh injuries, he's going to have knee injuries for the rest of his life then.
Yeah.
But as far as like a genetic thing, I think that is a thing. And I think Saka has been blessed with that so far.
Yeah.
Again, touch wood. Maybe stop using him as a reference. But Arteta has really tried to drive into him. No, don't complain.
Yeah.
Play every 3 days. That's what the top players do. And you need to, when you look at Saka, he's got 100 goal involvements for England and Arsenal combined now.
Yeah.
He's 22.
Yeah.
He's only played 200 games. He's on track to do some pretty amazing things. I know people like Haaland have changed that.
Yeah.
Because it just looks wild.
Yeah.
He has more goals. He has more, he's looking at 80 goals and assists in 45 games.
Yeah.
This is unheard of. This is Messi territory.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone can be that, and very rarely will be. But someone like Saka is doing unbelievable, and I think he deserves the player of the year. His last England game, he scored a hat-trick.
Yeah.
So I am looking forward to that game. I do not like international breaks, and the only redeemable quality I've got of this weekend for sport is the NFL is back. And I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan. Joe is a big Houston Texans fan.
Texas, baby.
What I'd like to do is hear from you guys. Tweet at Simon Miller 316 what NFL team you think he should support, because we'd like to we're not going to cover NFL on here, but I mean, I want him to have a team.
Has he not got a team?
I think he said he was a Packers fan when he was younger. He's not watched it for 5 to 10 years, something like that. And but he said recently he wants a team. But he doesn't know who he said. He's not opposed to just picking someone random.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be fun if the Gunners Are Us listeners can tweet at ByTBA on Instagram, or Twitter, or Simon Miller 316 on Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah.
Let them know what team you think he should be supporting, and we'll see how they do this year.
Yeah, I mean, I did the same thing growing up. I used to, because it wasn't really a prevalent thing for us back then.
Like in the mid-90s.
Yeah, Channel 4 would show the Super Bowl. That was about it. Like, we didn't get the full season, so I think I bounced around a little bit. I was a little bit Green Bay, a little bit of San Fran. In later years, I found the Giants a little bit. Wasn't fully paying attention. Then we had a lovely trip to our first WrestleMania in Texas, Houston. And I think I decided the year before, wherever they name this next WrestleMania, that's going to be my team from now on. And that was like, how many years ago now?
That was 14 years ago.
Wow. So yeah, from that day, Houston Texans fan.
Some would say I was smarter because I said we're going to Texas, so I'm going to support the Dallas Cowboys.
They're going to be good this season, I think.
I think every year we say that, and every year they a small part of my heart dies away.
Yeah.
But we'll find out, and I'm sure anyone listening to this, if you do have any predictions or thoughts on the NFL, let us know on our social medias. So getting back, we've done the international break. I want to talk. We've done the Premier League predictions. Let's just break down a little bit of what happened this week in the Premier League, because again, it was another wild week. Do you know what I think sums it up?
Yep.
The Arsenal game. I think that was a bang average game.
Up until a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That had amazing talking points.
Yep.
That we've all completely glossed over how boring the match was.
Yeah.
That was this weekend of football. Realistically, when you look at it, like if I just name some of these matches, Luton losing at home to West Ham 2-1, Sheffield United drawing 2-2 with Everton, Brentford drawing 2-2 at home to Bournemouth, Burnley losing 5-2 to Spurs. That's a big one. Forest beating Chelsea 1-0 at Stamford Bridge. Man City just standard 3-0 win over Fulham. Brighton beating Newcastle 3-0. Palace and Wolves 3-2. Liverpool 3-0 over Villa. Arsenal 3-1 over Man United.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds uninspired, except for a couple moments.
Yeah.
And that feels like what that Arsenal game was.
Yeah.
Uninspired with a couple crazy moments. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down some of those crazy moments of the weekend from the other teams before we get to the Arsenal Man United game. So first up on my little list is Chelsea losing at home to Nottingham Forest. Prediction-wise, I didn't go for it. I went for a draw. Joe went for a Forest win. having watched Arsenal v Forest,
Yep.
they are so strong on the counter.
Oh yeah.
They are going to be such a problem. And again, Man United, when you look at the Man United game they had last week, they went 2-0 up after 5 minutes.
Yep.
On the counter.
Mhm.
They are so strong. And Elanga, I don't know how United let that guy go. I don't know if it was just maybe a personnel situation. Like they knew he was good, but he just didn't fit the manager.
Well, they were talking about him as being like the next young player.
The next Garnacho.
You know,
they've kind of gone with Garnacho over him.
Yeah.
And again, time will tell. And again, if Garnacho had gone to Forest and Elanga had stayed at United,
yeah,
I'm sure, again, big teams,
yeah,
you get criticized differently.
It's player profiles, setups, manager. There's so many things that come into it. You can't judge a player going to another team then performing well. It's the same as if like Eddie went to Crystal Palace and became like their top goal scorer. It's a very different situation.
Yeah, just you get different chances, different setups. Teams defend differently to you. You know, when you're Arsenal or United or something, you're going against low blocks every week. It's a lot harder to score as a centre forward, whereas the wingers have more opportunities. So there's just things like that. But as far as Forest look, you know, they scraped staying in the Premier League last year.
Yeah.
I really don't think they're going to have that issue this year.
No.
They bought so many players last year. They've let them bed in a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
They bought even more players this year. And people like Callum Hudson-Odoi, Origi, you know, they're really buying into, like we always talk about, when you look at a lower level Premier League team that need to stay in the league. I always look for one player or two players that they have that are going to be a problem. So, like for example, if Arsenal played Palace at home, I'd feel confident we're going to win. But I'd only be scared because Zaha was there. Now it's Eze and Elise. But they have those players that you're just like, what could happen? Forest are now becoming that new team where, when you're playing them, for example, we did when they got us in a counter attack with Elanga. You look across that team, you go Hudson-Odoi, Origi, Elanga.
A lot of quality.
There's so much quality in there that you think, you know, they're not going to win 50% of their games by any means. They're not going to be top half, I don't think. But they're going to cause big teams problems. So
they'll survive.
And as a fan of Arsenal or United or Liverpool, you look for these teams to be good enough that when you're watching, let's say we're watching a City game and they're playing away at Forest, you go, oh, they're going to lose this. Like, you know, another City win. You want these teams to be strong enough that you can watch it with a bit of excitement and you go, oh, but what if Elanga gets away on the break, you know? Whereas there's a couple teams currently in the league that I really worry for.
Oh, they haven't got that.
They haven't got what Forest have done, what they've done to Chelsea, what they've done to us, what they did to United. Obviously, they only got 3 points from Chelsea.
Like Sheffield United.
Luton, I'm really worrying. Wolves even.
Everton even.
Yeah, and again, we'll be previewing the Arsenal-Everton game next week because they have become a bit of a bogey side, especially with Dyche next week. Hopefully with Simon back. But yeah, I do worry about those teams. And you start to go, name the player that is really scaring you. Where Forest have like 4 at the minute. Palace have 2 or 3. I'm trying to think of some other teams, but
I think Brighton are even above that now. Like
Brighton, I think are just a world-class football team.
They're just up their level with like the Newcastle.
I genuinely believe if Brighton were in La Liga, they would come 2nd or 3rd. You know, in the Premier League, they come naturally around 5th or 6th. But they are good enough. And I know last week they had a big loss. And then this week they've had a big win.
Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll talk about that. And this is where one of the 3 hat tricks of this weekend happened. And it was Ferguson.
Ferguson.
And he's going to be a name that we're going to hear about a lot.
That finishing on the boy, wow.
I said a couple weeks ago, he's got a robotic feature to him that's very Haaland-like.
Size.
And I don't think he's anywhere like Haaland, but I think he could be a regen of Kane. I don't know if he's as intelligent as Kane. We haven't seen enough of him. He's not played enough. Whereas Kane's got this kind of football IQ that makes him so dangerous, where he's turning, he's putting the ball into space, he's reading the game. Ferguson might just be a straight-up finisher.
Well, he reminds me very much of a modern day, because of the Ireland link as well, Robbie Keane.
Oh yeah.
Very similar. Like
a lot bigger, more powerful.
Oh, he's a lot more suited to the modern game than a Robbie Keane would be maybe now. But yeah, every now and then these nations come up with these players. Like Scotland sometimes have that player, like Duncan Ferguson was back in the day. Ireland have now got Ferguson if they can keep hold of him.
So this is gonna be the thing: is next summer is going to be Brighton are going to just like Scrooge McDuck over there, like
even the national team. Like he's thinking that he's got the England link still. He could join Rice and Grealish. Yeah,
I feel for Ireland if they lost Ferguson, Grealish, and Rice.
Yeah,
that'd be awful of this generation. But he does look good. Brighton look good. I watched the game, and I think we all kind of thought draw or just a good game.
Yeah.
Newcastle did not look at it. I'm going to say, I said this all last year.
Yeah.
I've said it already this season on this podcast. Newcastle are not as good as people think they are.
Yeah.
They had an amazing year.
Yeah.
Where they were kind of winning 1-0s, and they were a big time wasting team, similar to Villa last year.
Yeah.
But they went on certain runs that just went amazingly. The probability of you going on runs that you're scraping by are unlikely. Similar to kind of how I felt about Arsenal. We scored so many late goals. I didn't think that was possible to do again this year.
Yeah.
We've started already doing one.
Yeah.
But again, that's separate to the fact that I think Newcastle play pretty average football.
Yeah.
They're pretty dull.
Yeah.
They have amazing days.
Yeah.
Like certain days, they just like the opening day against Villa, they just look unstoppable. But then they go against 10-man Liverpool and they lose. And then they go against this Brighton side who lost to West Ham.
Yeah.
And by the way, Newcastle are a better team than West Ham.
Yeah.
And they tried the same technique and they did not do it. They were not as clinical as West Ham with Bowen and Antonio. They were not as good on the ball. They were not as cutting.
Yeah.
They were just average and they didn't defend great. And I think they're kind of getting found out a little bit. And I said last year, because I really got agitated by I think it was 0-0 at the Emirates.
Yeah.
It was the game which started all this problem with the time wasting because the ball was in play for less than 45 minutes out of, I think it was 100.
Yeah.
That's awful. And that's what started all this. But I hated that game because it was just hard to watch because there were so many stoppages.
Yeah.
And I remember that day I said to you, I said to our dad when we were watching the game, they're gonna fall off because at this time I think they were like third, second. Because I said they got a smaller squad. They cannot play that much effort into just trying to get a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw and not feel the repercussions. But they're still playing the same way.
Yeah.
They've added 1 or 2 players. They've lost 1 or 2 players.
Yeah.
So their depth isn't bigger. They struggled just to be on one. They basically went to the final of the Carabao Cup. They went to the end of the Premier League and they had to win to get to 4th at the end. Now adding the Champions League in, having not deepened their squad,
with that group as well.
And the group that they've got, I can't see how this ends well unless in January, if they can stay in the top 7-8 pack and stay in that group a little bit.
Yeah.
Because similar to what I said about Arsenal a couple of years ago, we shouldn't have got Champions League last year.
No.
I said we're not ready for Champions League.
No.
Europa was our level. I didn't want to. I wanted to be in Champions League, but I think realistically, on our progression, Europa was correct last year.
Yeah, you have to be patient.
And we didn't like what's it called? And we went out early and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
But as far as Newcastle, Europa, them coming third in that league, I think is really important.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if the owners, obviously, naturally, they want to go the distance in it. I don't think they have that ability. Their owners might be even thinking, could they come 4th in that group and get out of Europe? And then in January, you're already out of the Champions League.
Yeah.
They're probably hoping for a cup run, maybe in the Carabao again.
Mm-hmm.
But in January, go and get 4 players.
Yeah.
Depth. Get them through to the end of the season, get another top 4.
Yeah.
And then that's someone they can reinvest. Because if you've watched the documentary, it's all about PFA, financial fair play, FFP. It's all about kind of figuring out how to make more money so you can spend more money.
Yeah.
And getting in the Champions League was a big part of that. The revenue they're going to get from these games with PSG, AC Milan.
You got Mbappe coming to St. James's. It's wild.
It's huge. But they can't really use that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I think their best bet, because I think Europa League is horrid.
Yeah.
So many games, awkward ties, not necessarily winnable, but not necessarily losable.
Yeah.
You're going to mess up your league campaign with a Europa Cup if you're kind of got that kind of squad.
Yeah.
So to me, I think they almost need to come 4th in that league, get out, get some players in January and try and just kind of rescue the season. Because I genuinely believe by Christmas, they could be around 10th.
Yeah.
And they could be worried about, because in their growth with the new owners, they have to get Champions League football again.
There's a lot of pressure.
That is, I'd say, over the whole league, they have the most pressure to come top 4.
Yeah.
Other teams like Liverpool and bounce back, they know they will.
Yeah.
But I think if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be very worried.
Yeah, it's
long term they're going to be fine, but you have to get each step of the progression correct. And I feel like already they're faltering, if that makes sense.
I think that's the issue. I think timing's off. I think it's all come a little bit too early. I mean, the owners might not believe that because this is all very exciting for them. Like we said before, I don't think the main owner wasn't a big football guy before, so this is all just exciting to him. He doesn't understand progression and the timing of all of this rebuild that they're going through. I think it's a tough time because the Premier League is so dotted with quality teams. Any given week, you can lose to any of them. It's not like with Brighton. They lost to West Ham. West Ham looked very good. They're doing a bigger time version of what a team that's looking that they might get relegated, like we were saying earlier. They're doing what they can to get by, but at a bigger level with more pressure. They've now got, like you say, more games, more big games. So they've got to put a lot of work in on those midweek games now to even try to get past those teams like Dortmund. Is it Dortmund? PSG? Who's the third team?
AC Milan.
AC Milan. They're going to have to work very hard. And they, like you said, they haven't got the depth.
No.
They haven't got the depth. So when they do those midweek games, they're going to have to go into the weekend coming off a hard work game where they could potentially lose.
How do you think Dan Burns is going to do against Mbappe?
That is the most interesting thing.
I can't wait.
I'm going to be honest. No matter what with Newcastle, I'm very excited to watch the progression. Like we said, we've got a link with them because of our mum's side of the family. I do think Eddie Howe is a good coach. I do think they've got a good team. So I'm very interested to watch how this plays out, like more so than when Man City were doing this.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to just see how they combat those games. Not so much thinking ahead as in like they're going to lose, they're going to be worn out for the weekend games. I'm just looking forward to like how those games look at St. James's with that atmosphere, that group of players, how Eddie Howe's going to cope with that. And again, I'm trying to stay positive.
We're not positively Newcastle though. We're positively Arsenal.
But like we said before, we want to make it more inclusive. This podcast, like we are Arsenal fans. It is an Arsenal podcast,
but we love the Premier League.
We love the Premier League, and we will, like we said about Man United when we come to that later. We don't want to throw shade on Man United, like albeit we've had a massive rivalry with them for years. The games are always heated.
Yeah,
but we want to keep it positive. We want to just discuss it properly. So if Newcastle fans are even listening, it's all very exciting. Like all of this, like no matter what. They are in the Champions League. It may be slightly too early for them, but you got to enjoy that ride while you got it. And you never know. You never know. Like we said, they're working, like even with the time wasting, they're doing things to get by.
Yeah. It's like they don't understand they've got a new body.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's like they haven't figured out that they're not that team.
Yeah.
And they're in transition.
Yeah.
And the other thing they're going to learn is every year they're getting better. Every year the teams will get deeper.
Yeah.
And then
the experience as well.
And also the difference between being Newcastle when you play Liverpool is so different now than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they have to understand that because as an Arsenal fan, we go against 18 teams that will go into a very low block and it is impossible to break down.
Yeah.
Then the next week we go against Man City. They're the only team that won't do a low block.
Yeah.
So you have to get used to these kind of how do you break down 11 men behind the ball?
Mini games.
Yeah, they're mini games. And they haven't dealt with that. They've usually just dealt with back and forth games, or they're the ones doing the low block.
Yeah.
They're now going up against, West Ham.
Yeah.
Whereas 2 years ago, all they think is, okay, we're going to have to beat West Ham. We're going to have to think of ways around it. But now all of a sudden West Ham sit back and they go, oh, we're not used to seeing this. Like, how do we break that down? Talking about being positive. We spoke a lot on Tottenham last week, which I don't want to this week, but I do have to mention Son's hat trick. They won 5-2 away from Burnley. It adds to what we said last week. Maybe they are good.
Yeah.
Time will tell. And I think, again, depth, but being out of the Europe and they're also already out of the Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
They're only in the FA Cup and the league this year.
Yeah.
They don't need the biggest depth. They have 7 days to get ready for most matches.
Yeah.
If they can get through this into the Christmas break and still be... And I'm not talking about them winning the league, I don't think. I think City are just going to win the league. I don't think there's anyone stopping that.
No.
But if they want to be top 4, top 3, if they can get through to Christmas in January, and if they're still in the dance of the top 5, they've got any chance.
They're making all the right moves. I mean, they've lost the pressure of having the big name manager.
Yeah.
They've lost the pressure of having the elephant in the room, which was Kane.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Even though he was amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to lose your best player to regroup,
bring the team together. Yeah. And then Maddison has been the ultimate ad. Like
he's got to be the signing of the summer.
Like next to Rice, I think
if Rice was 70 million, I would have him as the signing in the summer.
Yeah.
He's been amazing.
Yeah.
Is he 105 million? I don't know, because I don't know what 105, because when you look at Casado, who's also 105, or Enzo, that it's Rice has had a head and shoulders, but he's also in a better team than both of them.
That's the thing. Like when you spend that much money, you want that player to be the absolute joining force in the team. Like Maddison has been. That's a prime example. Maddison comes in, pulls the team together. He's doing amazingly well for that team. Rice was more like an add to a very good team that will just bring us forward. So yeah, I think Maddison has added a lot to that team as a whole. Like, I think he's the glue in the middle that is just creating everything.
Yeah, sometimes you don't want a focal point. You want someone who's going to keep moving the ball around and kind of get them out. So spreading the wealth, like similar to us last year, we had five players that got over 10 goals.
Yep.
No other team did that in Europe because usually there is a focal point, and that takes away sucks a lot of the goals to one person,
and also the risk of injury.
Yeah,
like so, if Tottenham were to lose Maddison now, like when he hurt his ankle the other week, it seems like it's not the end of the world for them, but you lose that player, all of a sudden the whole thing goes to pot.
Yeah, because he's the one that's getting the ball out to Son and like allowing Son to play again. And Richarlison, I don't know, but Kulevski and people like that. I apologize for my voice.
I put it down to the heat and dehydration.
Yeah, we are sweating. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Liverpool beat Villa 3-0. Villa, I think, have become super Emery.
Yeah.
And that sounds weird, but as someone who's lived through it, you're going to win 4-0 some weeks. And you're going to think, are we challengers?
Yeah.
And then some weeks you're going to think, why are we so bad? And I think that is just what comes with Emery. And I think that's why Emery is a really good coach for Europa League level teams and teams like Villa. Not to disparage them, but I think that's his level. Like PSG was too much. Arsenal was too much. Arsenal was a poison chalice.
Yeah.
Similar to how United are. Like sometimes it's almost too much.
Yeah. Too much pressure, too big.
But PSG, I think he doesn't have the ability to win every single game.
No.
But he'll win 70% of them,
Yeah.
as the league table shows since he's taken in charge. It's only Pep that's got more wins.
Yeah.
But he will also get turned over and you'll go, we are so bad. And the horseshoe of doom going around to the flanks, coming around to the flanks, and then getting counterattacked, having not actually mounted in a threat.
Yeah.
I think I'm already seeing that in Villa. But I mean, they're going to clean up against Sheffield United. They're going to clean up against Luton.
And even maybe in a trophy, like they're gonna do well. Like he's one of those managers that week to week, it's not the best watch, but he will get you something.
I think they're in the Europa League conference.
Yeah,
I think if they are, I mean, they got every chance to win it.
Yeah, big time.
But when you look at their squad, it's looking better now. Like when you got Diaby, the Coutinho looks like he's got a bad injury, but
and Mings is out now for a while.
Mings is out, and so is not Ben Rama. He plays for West Ham. Buendia,
yeah.
So they are struggling a little bit, but I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think 8th is probably where they're going to be, but Liverpool is who I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone's forgotten how good Liverpool are.
Yeah.
And the way Klopp manages, I think the defense is aging. I think they're not as good as they were. The front three, one is aging, and there is talk of him. £215 million is on the table from Saudi Arabia. If you're Liverpool, I'd take that for a 31-year-old because that completely sorts your net spend out. Which theirs is already quite good, makes their books look amazing. And you cash it in and you accept we need to basically edge by until Christmas. And I know right now it's easy to think, oh, they're in a title challenge. I don't think they are.
No.
I think we're getting excited.
They're not quite there.
No, I don't think they're quite there. They haven't got the, when we're talking about Arsenal don't have the depth or the quality to beat City to the title. Why would Liverpool?
Yeah.
Because their depth is smaller.
Yeah.
The quality is slightly smaller. So I don't think Arsenal in a title run. I don't think Liverpool is. I think it is City's to lose. But I would cash that in.
Yeah.
They're only in Europa League. I think league games until the January transfer window is like 11.
Yeah.
It's not crazy amounts of games. Sell Salah, get through those 11 games. If you win half of them and draw a couple and lose a couple, that's about right for a title challenging team when City weren't here.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Get through the group stage of Europa. That'll be easy for them. And then in January, go and reinvest. They could spend 30 million on a Pedro Neto.
Yep.
They could, which is a very Liverpool type buy, like kind of a 30 million kind of level, and everyone goes, "Oh, are they good enough?" And then they become a Mane or a Jota or a Diaz, a Darwin. Darwin was more expensive.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you look at their front line, if they lost Salah, if you would play Darwin down the middle, but Diaz and Gakpo, that's a world-class front three.
Well, I don't even think Gakpo's starting at the minute.
No, that's and not Jota.
No.
So that's good depth there.
Oh god, if I was playing FIFA Manager at this point,
you'd be happy with that, and I'd take the 250.
Yeah, they're definitely not in the same place Tottenham were when they needed to get rid of Kane to pull the team together. I think they're further along in the process, like we were talking about with the process of Newcastle earlier.
Yeah,
they're deep in the process now. They've got Klopp, they've got the setup, they've got the players, they all know the system. Salah's definitely not a Kane. And I definitely don't think if this Saudi offer hadn't come along, they wouldn't be even thinking about offloading him. But like you say, I think they are in the point where they need to get back to square one when Klopp came in. and you said like they
rebuild.
Yeah, because no, I mean, even when Klopp took on the Salahs, the Van Dijks, they weren't players.
No one thought they were world beaters at the time.
No.
Like Van Dijk more so, they thought he was kind of in the situation Saliba is now. Like if we were 8th right now, and Newcastle or someone who was second bought Saliba, that's how they felt about Van Dijk.
Yeah,
you felt like he was going to become the big guy.
Yeah,
and he did.
Yeah,
but he also went into a perfectly good team at that time.
Yeah,
what he needs to do is re-go. Like he's got rid of Firmino, he's got rid of Henderson, he's got rid of Fabinho.
Yeah,
he's got rid of all these guys. Mane even. Salah. He needs to get rid of that front three.
Yeah.
And needs to go, all right, my front three is Diaz, Gakpo, and Darwin.
Yeah.
Jota's my backup.
Yeah.
Go get, a Podence or a Neto or someone. A Matoma.
Matoma, I think, is perfect.
Yeah. And then their midfield now, they've got Sosbalai.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I've done it right.
You did it there. Yeah.
They've even got Thiago to come back.
Yep.
But they've got McAllister.
Yep.
And I believe they just bought someone else, and I can't remember for the life of me.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? Like they bought someone who everyone's pretty excited about. I can't remember their name. It's the Dutch guy.
Yeah.
Who's just refused to play for Holland, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. So they've reinvested into a younger midfield.
Yep.
And if you watch Klopp's sides, he doesn't really play with a number 10.
No.
He plays with 3 workhorses in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Henderson, Fabinho, Wijnaldum.
It's an absolute engine in the middle.
Yeah, it's an engine, and he gets his wingers in, and he gets his fullbacks up.
Yeah.
So he's doing that.
Yeah.
I think maybe a new left back would be someone over Robertson, because as he's getting older.
Yep. How old is Robinson?
He's got to be 28, 29 at least. But I mean, he's still doing it perfectly.
Yeah.
He's so solid. But and Trent is such an unbelievable player. They're probably not getting the credit he deserves, how good he is.
Yeah.
He's overtaken people like Ozil, Hazard, and all these guys as most assists in the Premier League.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's forming again.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might need a year or two.
Yeah.
And they have to stick with Klopp. If they get rid of Klopp, let's say in 6 months or a year, and they have to start again, that's when you start getting funny, because the next manager comes in and goes, oh, I don't like McAllister and Diaz.
Yeah.
Let's go buy this guy and this guy. But I mean, with 250 million in the pocket, who knows what they could do. So I'm excited to see what they do. Hopefully it's not too good, because I want to be above them.
Yeah, they've been a bit scary for a while now.
Yeah, and I thought maybe they'd gone away, and I thought, hey, we're the new Liverpool. But maybe Liverpool is still Liverpool.
Yeah.
But we're going to move now on to the big game of the weekend. The most talked about, I think, like almost like a viral game.
Man.
Like if you go on YouTube, all you're getting is, Goldbridge, all these AFC TV or whatever it's called.
I don't think I've consumed so much content post game than I have this week.
And I don't think I would have consumed any of it if the Garnacho goal had stood.
Yeah.
But we want to break down the game. There's, I think looking at it, 7 talking points.
Yep. Which we wouldn't have expected up to like an hour into the game.
And that seven talking points, they all happen in very small little areas, because the rest of the game, essentially you're watching Arsenal watch Onana play the ball to Martinez and play it back to him. And if you look at the passing and the progression maps of dribbling and passing, Onana was the most progressive player for Man United on the day.
I think the heat map even drew a perfect shape of a bus at one point.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because the thing is, it's not even like where they camped out.
No.
We didn't press. And I know a lot of people, like Gary Neville even on the commentary was saying, this is the most weak press I've seen Arsenal do. Like, they're just not bothering.
Yeah.
And if you don't watch Arsenal week to week, it's not just a Sanchez type press.
Yeah.
It's they call it a blanket press.
Yeah.
We basically force you into situations where you play to the ball to where we want you to play.
Yeah.
So basically, no one actually wants to necessarily win the ball off of the goalie. They're not actually trying to.
No.
They're trying to force you into a direction. So you play it down a channel where we've already overcommitted to 2 players. So you have to go there.
Yeah.
That's kind of the press they do. And if you've watched Arsenal a lot, what they did against Man United happens a lot. What happens is Man United played exactly like Brighton.
Yeah.
If Brighton weren't that good.
Yeah.
This sounds like a dig, but their centre backs put the foot on the ball, and we just watched them.
Yeah.
And if we play Brighton, that's exactly what we do, because Lewis Dunk gets that ball under his foot, and they're so good at it, they're so patient, and they play it around. They wait for you to commit.
Yeah.
As soon as you commit, they do a little dink over the top, and then it's movement.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Man United did it perfectly once in the whole game. Not the goal. The goal was a bit more route one.
Yeah.
The Garnacho goal.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of talk about the Garnacho goal now, even though it's in a weird order, because what they did there is exactly what Brighton do.
Yeah.
They drew us up, made the 6 jump,
Yep.
which was Rice. Now we had 5 across the front trying to press their goalie,
Yeah.
which is not what we do. We just got impatient because it was 1-1 and we were chasing the game.
Yeah.
It's what they waited the whole game for. Onana went over the top. I can't remember if it was Onana or whether it was a defender. Maybe it might have even actually been Maguire. But he knocks over the top. Højlund comes down deep, does an amazing bit of link up. I think it was Bruno.
Yeah.
Bruno does a great tackle. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Transition.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. And they put Garnacho in. It is marginal.
Yeah.
The conversation around that goal is it offside? Isn't it offside? In real time, I was like, it looked offside because everyone jumped.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's on. And then when they showed the replay once, if they didn't get any lines out and they showed it just once, I would have gone, oh, he's onside.
Yeah.
And I would have just moved on with my life. Very similar to the Man City goal at the Etihad against Arsenal last year, John Stones. They scored, the flag went up. We all watched the replay. The City players all knew it was offside. We all looked at the replay and went, oh, he's offside. Let's carry on. And then for 10 minutes, they got these lines out and they used a camera angle that we don't understand.
Yeah.
And we went, what? He's onside? It didn't make any sense. Even if you look at the pictures now, I looked at it this week, it didn't make any sense. The Garnacho one is tighter than that Stones one, but the Stones one happened to be onside.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy, is it looked really offside, whereas the Garnacho one looks tight and ended up being offside.
Yeah.
So all I say is, similar to goal line technology, I don't think the technology is as good as the goal line technology. Is if it's offside and they draw the lines and it's on, I just accept it. Because if that had been given and he had said it was onside, I wouldn't have been like, I think he was off. I wouldn't have questioned it. I would have just been like, oh, I guess it's onside then. Yeah. And I would have been just upset that we had lost a game that I know we should have won if we were a bit more ruthless.
Yeah.
So as far as that decision goes, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So we can argue about the technology. You know, last year we had a goal that was disallowed for offside when they completely missed a player.
Yeah.
That's
a human error. Yeah.
That's human error. That's just awful.
Yeah.
And it happened to Brighton as well. But as far as this one, I think if the lines say they're on, that's all we can go by. Like, I know it sounds biased because we ended up winning, but I mean, even if we'd lost this, I would have said, I wouldn't have argued that one.
No.
I could have argued a lot of other stuff in the match, but that one, it's just whatever the lines say, I believe.
A couple of things on the offside, though. I do believe without the VAR, like I know linesmen are told to keep their flag down now, just to let it run, which I totally appreciate.
Yeah.
But I do believe, like I even said it in play when that got passed through, I thought it looked offside and we're at a slight jaunty angle. Jaunty. Word of the day. But as you
sweaty as mine.
Yeah. And I know I say it a lot. Sometimes you watch Arsenal with me. I do kind of
basically anytime another team score, Joe shouts offside. And it frustrates me because it usually is onside.
But I think the percentages are good on when I do call it. It does sometimes work. And I think with this one,
you're like a defender that puts his arm up.
Yeah, I do believe with this one, when it was played through, it looked unnatural. Like the movement of our defense and him and Garnacho.
Yeah.
It looked unnatural. So I did call offside on the play, even though we got a weird angle. But I do believe without VAR, I think that linesman would have flagged it.
Because it just looked it
looked unnatural. With the body movements, it just looked wrong.
Do you know what's crazy as well? If he had flagged it and they had showed the replay and there was no lines because there's no VAR, we would have gone, oh, we got it wrong.
Yeah.
Because off the first image, without any lines, it looks on.
Yeah.
And you go, so it's crazy. Before VAR, that would have probably been given off on the field. But the replay would have been like, oh, he's got it wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas on this one, he didn't give it.
Yeah.
But VAR showed he actually got it wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like the opposite. So it shows you that you get a different outcome based on the different technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I guess it's offside.
But on a second note, though, I don't think enough praise has been put on Gabriel
for throwing the old smooth criminal.
That I know, because even the commentators kind of went the opposite way with it at the time, and they said he was doing something weird.
They said he leant his body forward too much. So, but if you're running one way and you have to change direction,
he's jumped backwards. Yeah. Like I don't think a lot of the time I listen to the commentators and they say these things, and you kind of wonder if they really understand what's going on, because even we can see what's happened. He's jumped back.
Well, he knows he's been like, at the end of the day, he knew that they were done.
Yeah.
That it was a great bit of movement from United. Garnacho was through. His last attempt, he knew he wasn't going to catch him.
Yeah.
So he thought, I'm just going to jump backwards and just hope for the best.
And I don't think enough praise hasn't been lumped on what Gabriel did in that moment, because that saved the game. It literally saved the game.
This podcast is very different if he doesn't do that.
Yeah, and so, to have the in-match IQ and the speed of thinking in that moment to jump back and catch him offside the way he did, I think there's not enough. And I want to put that. No, we're a positive podcast. I want to put some praise on Gabriel there, because I don't think enough was said.
Well, and I was going to say that as far as offsides, that's all we kind of can talk about in that game. But I'm just going to throw it back quickly that VAR had an odd weekend, because some people would say that, like Howard Webb, who's the head of the PMGO, I don't remember the name.
Yeah,
sounds right.
I do. The stuff he's doing Like they're showing a lot on Sky now. Really interesting.
I like Howard Webb talking.
Mm.
I don't know how I rated him as a ref originally, but I much prefer him to Mike Dean, who's just wants to be a celebrity. In that game, he showed how stupid the point of having a ref in there is.
Yeah.
Because, for example, we're going to jump now to the Havertz incident, the penalty. He literally said in real time, they said, Mike Dean, what do you think? He goes, oh, it's a penalty. They showed a replay and he goes, yeah, he caught his back leg. It's a penalty. There's not enough to overturn. It's not a clear error.
Which we all said at the time.
Yeah, we went, okay. Again, like I said, if that was given against us, I would have said, oh, that's soft.
Yeah.
But I would have said, you can't overturn it.
Because there's contact.
Yeah, there's contact. So like similar to the Rashford one against Forest.
Yeah.
If he gives it on the field, you can't overturn it.
No.
If he doesn't give it, I don't think, again, you overturn it to give it a penalty. It's one of them, like.
Yeah.
So, but literally Mike Dean says, oh, that's a stonewall penalty. It's not enough to overturn. Cool. Then the VAR, we hear the VAR bit and he says, oh, he's going to go check it. And he goes and checks it. He's watching it. And Mike Dean comes up on the commentary and just goes, oh, this is a perfect example of how good VAR is. He should overturn this.
Yeah.
And they overturn it. It's like he just had to basically agree with whatever was happening. So
he's trying to push a narrative too hard.
Yeah, and it was like he showed his hand and then he panicked and went, oh God, no, this is a perfect example of what VAR is. And again, if that was the first time in the Premier League that they've overturned a decision on the field to the ref.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they did that more often, I'd be fine. Because again, if they go to the screen, we all know as a football fan now,
that's it.
They're changing whatever happened, So once he went to screen, I was like, oh, they're taking it away. Cool, whatever. If that happened more often, I'll be fine.
It's consistency.
Yeah, because that is what VAR's there for. It's like you've made an error. I don't care if it's a slight error, and like this ruling of if it's not a big enough error, we don't change it. It's like no, an error is an error. Like if they don't think, and I don't think it's a penalty. Like realistically, I think Havertz could stay up.
Yeah.
Again, if I'm running the speed that Havertz is and my ankle gets clipped, because
two players also coming in from either side, it's clumsy from them.
Yeah, I can see how it is a penalty, 100%. But if they want to not give them every week, I'm totally cool with that. Like I don't want necessarily that to be a penalty in football.
Yeah.
Because it is just a bit, just stay up. Just run through. But again, I also don't know what it's like to run through. And they're saying he manufactured the contact. I don't think he had no clue. He was just running and his foot hit the guy's knee. Like it's an accidental contact.
Yeah.
But when you go back, let's say last year, this is not Arsenal podcast. We talk about Arsenal. We lost to Wolves.
Yep.
It might have even been last year, the year before. And David Luiz is running behind a guy.
Yeah.
And his back leg is trailing. His stud touches Luiz's knee.
Yeah.
Luiz isn't just running.
No.
His stud touches his knee gently. He gets a red card, a penalty, and we lose the game. In that same game, by the way, Martinelli got sent off for 2 bookable offences in 10 seconds.
Wild.
In one phase, which has also never happened and won't happen again. So that's what gets frustrating. And that's we're saying this from an Arsenal fan. People will go, oh, Arsenal fans got a vendetta. No, we all got these feelings. Like United fans will feel the same. Liverpool, Bournemouth. You'll all have these moments that over the last couple of years. It's the inconsistencies that bother us. It's the fact that Rashford's one gets given last week.
Yep.
This one gets taken away.
It's the fact that it's literally week to week.
Yeah. I'm happy if they're both penalties. I'm happy if they're both not penalties. Can we just make it somewhat
black and white?
Yeah, because we all remember. Like as soon as that happened, the commentator said Rashford had one like this last week.
Yeah.
It's like, so we all remember it.
Yeah.
So that ref should be like, oh yeah, we gave this as a penalty to Rashford last week. We should give it a penalty again.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for the inconsistency, and that's the bit I don't enjoy. But talking of VAR, because I'm just ticking off all these talking points. Man City had a goal this week, and clearly in the line of vision. To give you an idea, that we're gonna put under a microscope Garnacho's goal, and get millimeter lines out to make sure it's offside or onside.
Yeah.
But then they can then give Haaland a goal, or is it Ake a goal, where Akanji is clean in front of the goalie.
Yeah.
He makes a movement to hit the ball, but misses it.
Yeah.
And it goes in. And we've heard the VAR now.
Yeah.
We've heard how they spoke. And they basically said he's in the way of play, but I just don't think he's trying to get out of the way, not trying to kick. But anyone that can watch it can see he actively tries to volley the ball.
Well, Leno hesitates.
Yeah.
There's a split-second hesitation because he doesn't know if Akanji is going to get something on this ball. So that split second is what costs him saving that.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they're not looking at that as part of the VAR check. Like even Howard Webb said it on that really good show on Sky with Michael Owen.
Yeah.
He said there's a hesitation from Leno. The fact that he's hesitated proves to you, without a shadow of a doubt,
the guy who was in an offside position has altered how it's gone. Yeah. And that's what the inconsistencies, because we can make sure Garnacho's goal isn't a goal when it's that marginal.
Yeah.
But when a guy's standing 3 yards offside, they're still giving it.
Yeah.
And that's what's confusing. And that's why people like United fans are going to be livid, because you're going, you've just watched the game go, he's clearly offside, and they've given that.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to get, like, we felt it last year, a couple of times where we had goals where they got the lines out. And you're like, how do they know that's right?
Yeah.
And I know that they've said, like, the fans are showing their, like, lack of knowledge a bit with this, because the technology they use is very good.
Yeah.
And then the camera angles is irrelevant. It's all to do with maths.
Yeah.
I understand that. But it's the idea. It's nothing to do. I don't think it's a wrong decision. I think it's whatever they tell us.
Yeah.
It's different to, like, a gray area, which is like, was that was that over the ball red card, or was it intent?
We don't know for Saka's potential.
The Saka one. So Man United fans have an issue with the Saka. They think that should be red card. I understand why. I've seen them given.
Well, I've seen Man United fans put up a still image a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it does look bad.
It looks bad in that image, but in the context of what happened in that moment, it's very different.
Yeah, he's fouled. He's pulled down. He falls down flat. His feet go out, and it hits him in the ankle. It's not a challenge. He's not attempting a challenge. He literally just falls down.
Yeah.
But I can see why, because technically a red card is endangering an opponent.
Yeah.
Could he have broken Fernandez's leg? No. But could he have injured him? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can, like, if they gave it, I'd be very annoyed, but I could understand it.
Yeah.
But then you jump across to another big incident, which is Eddie beats, I think it was Delort, or was it?
It's down the right hand side. So Wan-Bissaka?
No, it was. Oh my god, a Man United fan would be livid. Lindelof. It was Lindelof. I knew you said Darmian. I feel like he doesn't play anyway. He comes across and he basically misreads the ball. It's going to go out play. Eddie is a bit keen. He gets to it, knocks it past, and there is a covering Man United player. It's not a red card for the sense of the last man. There's a Man United player coming. But Eddie's going to be one-on-one, and there's a player, I think it's Saka.
Yeah.
He could just knock the ball across, and it's a one-on-one.
Yeah.
It's a clear goal-scoring opportunity. I don't think it's too far out to be a red.
Yeah.
But it's super aggressive, super dangerous. And
the high boot of it to the head of Eddie is what makes
that's the thing, is Howard Webb showed this still, and literally his studs get caught in Eddie's hair.
Yeah.
Eddie just gets up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is the other inconsistency in football. It's so frustrating. If Eddie rolls around grabbing his face, which we don't want to see, he probably gets him sent off there, because they then check it, not because they were checking it to see if it was last man, which is a quick check. Cool, happy with that. If he rolled around, they're like, oh, because we've heard of our does things.
Yeah.
They react to the players. Like Fernandez a couple of times in the game started screaming.
Yeah.
And there was a VAR check instantly. Because they were like, what's he screaming about?
Yeah.
They would check it, nothing happened.
Yeah.
So they listen to what's happening. So if Eddie just jumps up, they go, oh, is it last man? No. Okay, cool, carry on.
Yeah.
If he screams and grabs his face, they go, oh, is it a potential high boot? Then they check it. If they check that for high boot, he gets sent off.
There's a lot of narrative and opinion involved, which makes it all very grey. Because earlier on in the game, I think Havertz tried to block a forward pass from one of the Man United players. I can't remember. But he sticks his foot up quite high to block the ball. And you can see in context of the game, he's sticking his boot up to block the pass.
Yeah.
And even Gary Neville went back to it, I think, on commentary, and he was like, oh, that's a very high boot from Havertz. He's trying to push a narrative. Yeah. But this one on Eddie, 10 times worse than Havertz trying to block
because he's attempting to really... His intention there was, I need to chop the player down.
It's a high tackle.
But yeah, take away the height of it. It's just, he's chopping. There's ways of stopping a guy to get free. You grab his shirt, you pull him down from behind, like just grab him by the neck, and and it's like relatively safe. And you're like, I accept it's a book in. I just didn't want him to get away.
Yeah.
He's chopped his legs. Not just there's danger to his legs. There's danger to his face. It's a bad one.
You've got to read the context of the game as well, because Havertz's was out of nothing. Havertz was literally just trying to block a long pass. So there's no context involved. No. This one, he's trying to. You can see he's been caught out by Eddie.
Yeah, he knows he's stopping something.
So there's panic involved. Like when they show certain players going for big tackles, you can see it's coming. Like sometimes you can see a player's aggressive, and then other times you can see they jump in, but there's no aggression.
Yeah,
it makes a big difference in the context of the game.
Yeah, we even heard it in the VAR studio when Howard showed the. I think it was week 1, Burnley versus City. Yeah. Carl Walker, there was a red card on him, and you hear the ref say, "Big tackle coming."
Yeah,
like 2 seconds before he makes the tackle. So the refs are understanding. This player's going to jump in here.
Yeah.
He's saying it out loud as he's watching it. This guy's about to go in hard.
Yeah.
Then he goes in hard and goes, is it a booking? And they go, give us a sec.
Yeah.
There might be a straight leg. And again, if Havertz's one was, his foot was down, he kicks the bottom of his foot. They don't usually give them they sometimes a booking.
Yeah.
But not usually a red. It's if you straighten your leg, your knee is fully straight. And therefore, when they kick it, you're hitting a wall because your hip is stopping it from moving.
Yeah.
Whereas if your foot's bent and your leg's bent, there's movement.
Yeah.
You can kick through someone's foot.
Yeah.
And that's what they're kind of going by. So the letter of the law. And again, this happened again right at the end. I think it was Nelson on one of the Man United players when it was 3-1 right at the end.
Yeah.
Tried to break. And I thought, oh my God, like he's going to he's going to do it, man. Like, he's going to get red. And he didn't do anything. He gave a foul. He didn't even book him. And I was like, this is inconsistent. Like, that seemed more of a red that Nelson did right at the end, like right after the game was done. Then the Havertz one, the Saka one, the defender that I keep forgetting his name. No, Lindelof. It all. It's the inconsistency, because there could have been 2 reds to Arsenal, could have been 2 reds to Man United. There could have been a penalty to Arsenal. There could have been a goal to Man United. But what did happen was Man United scored a very good goal. They waited 30 minutes, I think, essentially for it. They played the ball around. We did not press them. The commentators were very agitated by how we pressed. But guess what? The one time we did overly commit and press, what did they do? They went over the top to Rashford, and he does what he does, which is cutting. He scores. He's very clinical. He's very good. A very nice goal. And that's why for 30 minutes we didn't do it, because we were very scared of that. And if you watch the first 8 minutes, they try it 3 times, a diagonal to Rashford. Their game plan was draw them up, be patient, get it to Rashford, let him get one-on-one with Ben White and cut in and see what happens, basically. And he did it one time. He did it 2 more times in the match, and he smashed the ball wide. But the first time he got it perfect. And I think it was just good football from Man United. It was boring. It was very, lower league stuff, like lower league, like a Foresty type.
Well, like what you would do if you feel like you're going up against a team you can't compete with, basically.
But again, Man City did that against Arsenal last year. And that's not because they knew they could compete against us. That's we were soft. Was De Bruyne explained it. He was like, why would we try and pass it around Arsenal when they're very good at transition, when we could just bring them up, knock it over the top to Haaland, and he'd score. And literally City did what Man United did. So, there are Arsenal fans saying, Man United are awful football. If they did that every week, I'd start to worry. If they did that against West Ham at home, I'd worry. If they did that even in West Ham away, I'd worry. But going against Arsenal or City and sitting back, bringing them up, knocking over the top to really quality wingers, like Rashford. I'm not going to say Anthony's quality. I think he's awful. But I mean, I think Garnacho's a lot better. But I think it's just good football. It's boring. I would hate to watch it myself. But each game is a mini game. They thought that's the best way to beat Arsenal, and it worked for a long. If the Garnacho goal stood, the game plan was perfect. But it took us 34 seconds to get back in the game. And it's an interesting bench cam footage. Where Odegaard, as soon as the goal goes in, Odegaard runs to Arteta, and Arteta basically, you can see him motion. You need to get to the edge of the box, and it needs to be cut back.
He pretty much directed the
next
goal.
Play. And then 30 seconds later, it cuts back and he scores it. And you think, why did we wait? But again, there's mini games inside games.
Different games.
The minute their goal goes in, Man United are in transition. Man United have conceded, I think, a few goals directly after they've scored. Hence why Onana, as soon as the goal went in, he was trying to say, calm down, like, we had them. If we had just gone back to just relax, go back to what they were doing, diagonal to Rashford, get back into shape, they would have been fine. But that I think that goal is so important to the whole game, because I think that would have got more frustrating. We were committed more, and they probably would have won 2-0 on a counter with like Rashford, because we would have committed more and more players. And brought on more attacking players. And I think Rashford would have just got us on the counter, which has happened a lot to us. When you think to Old Trafford, where we were a much better team last year. Talk about VAR decisions. Like, we watched that with a friend of ours, Bruno, who's a Man United fan, and he was like, that's not a foul. And they gave it as a foul. These small margins in games changed so much. And they wound up winning that one 3-1. Because of, they kind of got ahead and then they scored a late one. It's very reminiscent of what we did this year. It's very frustrating to watch for the other team. But so it went 1-1. Then there was the Havertz situation. Then there's the Garnacho goal. We've got to that. And then this is the positively Arsenal. 96 minutes. We get a corner. Odegaard, drives forward.
I didn't think it was. At first, I thought it was just an off shot.
Same. And they show the guy from The Gentleman in the crowd, the Kingsman. One of the. Is it
Mark Strong?
Mark Strong.
Mark Strong.
Who they just didn't recognize at all.
No.
And people since then have tweeted like, this fan is like all of us at that moment. I was like, he's like a stupidly big actor, but because also Loki was in the crowd, wasn't he?
He was,
So he was Loki an Arsenal fan. Hey, Loki was Loki an Arsenal fan.
Fantastic,
right?
Fantastic.
Mark Strong is an Arsenal.
He's a strong fan.
He's a strong fan. But Saka does a deep one.
At
this point, we got to remember, Martinez has waved the white flag and decided to go off not injured because he's just fed up.
Weird move.
And I think that's who United should be mad at, not Maguire and Evans. They don't decide to be there. Well, I think Maguire has. But if Martinez doesn't go off there, I don't think that goal happens, because he gets out and he gets close to Rice.
He has a lot of time.
2 aging average defenders in Johnny Evans and Maguire,
Mm.
and they're only on because of that. One of them is anyway. Rice has time to take it on his chest. It goes up very high, still no closing down.
Yeah.
And this is the other decision people are talking about, which is Johnny Evans is being held. That's why. Howard Webb showed it, and he said that there's no there is a hold, both players. But he said if the goal doesn't go in, he would have suggested to VAR that Arsenal get a penalty.
Yeah.
Because Evans just pulls him down.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that I think if the goal gets deflected wide, I wouldn't be asking for a penalty, nor would I think it was a free kick. I think it would just be another corner. Because Onana nearly saves it on a deflection, as a very good save.
Yeah.
But just pandemonium, like Joe starts crying.
It wasn't even that goal. Like so I want to start with the decision making of Rice.
Yeah.
In that moment, naturally, normally what we do is header it back across goal.
Yeah, but we've seen some of the YouTube clips of like where he's training.
Yeah.
He's got such a good strike.
But that's the thing he said in the post-match. He said in the past, what he would have done is brought it down and crossed it. He said the old Rice would have crossed it there.
Yeah.
But he said all day, all the Arsenal players were saying, you're going to score today. Yeah. You need to shoot. That was in his head. So what was the next thing you said? The crying.
You crying, yeah.
So this goal, yeah, we'll get to that.
That's what football does to you, though.
This goal specifically didn't necessarily make me cry as much. This one was more a case of there's something about Rice as a player. He
shows the passion, doesn't he? Like
he's
like whether he's new to Arsenal, people say he's not loyal. I think he just enjoys football.
Yeah,
he loves the idea of getting lost in a game.
He's one of those players. He kind of brings. It reminds me very much of what David Beckham used to bring to United and England.
Yeah.
That one focal point England player that will step up and do something when it's needed.
Yeah.
And then the celebrations that followed, and you could see how happy he is to get that goal and how happy everyone else is to get that goal. And not just that, not just Arsenal fans. I think a lot of England fans that support other teams are enjoying this Rice that we're getting now.
Well, yeah, because we've mentioned it before. He's had man of the match performances in Euros finals, semi-finals of the World Cup.
Yeah,
he's a big time player. I think he gets a kick out of playing in massive games that mean a lot. He doesn't get lost in it. I think, that's why it'd be good for us in Europe if we do manage to get out of the group. He'll do really well at kind of those Champions League nights. He's going to be so wound up. He's like a fan on a pitch,
and it does feel
not
like
an Arsenal fan, just a football fan.
Yeah,
because he's not one of these that we're going to claim he's our own. Like he's a Chelsea schoolboy. He went to West Ham. He's now at Arsenal because he wants to win big trophies.
Yeah,
but I'm not looking for that. Like not every player has to be like Saka, Smith Rowe. These guys are Arsenal boys.
Yeah, they're
the ones you feel that way. With Rice, I'm not like, now he's an Arsenal fan. I don't have to claim anything. He just loves football, and whoever he plays for, he gets invested in. And that's what every football player should be doing.
The fact that he's a born-again Arsenal fan at this point, like he's buying in, he's singing North London.
Yeah, he's trying to ingratiate himself with the crowd, and that's what I think a football player should do. Should understand the meaning it has to all of us.
And I think that passion I get when I watch him play, because I know that the whole football world is watching him. Like a lot of the football world want him to do well.
Yeah.
Like even if you're not an Arsenal fan, so when he does do well, you have that there's like a
deep feeling,
like excitement and passion, because you know that the world's watching. You know that you're happy for him. You know that you're happy for what he can give to England.
Yeah.
But yeah, that goal didn't quite make me emotional.
It was the
nail in the coffin that did it, I think.
Some say it might be Darmian. I'm joking. But he's still sliding, they say.
He's still. I saw him actually pop up on our drive a minute ago. He
just slid on by. Yeah. It was an unbelievable finish. I'm sure it was the nightmare goal for what's it called, for Man United fans to see.
Oh yeah.
It reminds me a lot of when I think Lingard scored one at the Emirates. He called it the dance floor.
Yeah.
And it was like that. It was on the counter. We were kind of pushing, and then it killed the game.
It's definitely the goal of the game.
It's definitely frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
But for us, it was just relief, because all I was thinking was this is going to be 2-2.
Yeah.
It's just going to be 2-2. Nelson does a fan. Nelson and Vieira need so much credit.
Yeah.
I think they've really grown. I think they're going to have big parts to play.
It's urgency they bring to the game.
And Vieira, like 3 assists in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Outside of Odegaard, he has the most assists in the last, I think it was like 8 months or something in Arsenal. He's growing. He's becoming a very good player. I think he is going to be a good player. And I think I'm starting to really warm to him. I didn't dislike him. I didn't see what he gave yet. He
was in a very similar position last season to where Havertz is now.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't quite figured it all out. There's a little bit of weakness to his game that we're all kind of umming and ahhing over.
Yeah.
But he has come further along in the process and the progression of where he's at in the team to offer what he can offer. And I do believe Havertz is going to do the same.
Yeah, that goal was it was such a nice feeling. It was a relief. That's why, they mentioned on the commentary, like the crowd was shaking. I've heard people that went to the game that said their ears were ringing before the game started
Yeah.
in the concourse. Like they were struggling to like hear themselves think.
Yeah.
And the commentator said, I can't explain how loud it is. And I think as an Arsenal fan, like we've seen in the last year how loud the Emirates has got, because we have been notoriously boring at home. I think our away fans have always been brilliant.
Yeah.
But our home has always been very like applaudy, could boo.
Yeah.
Very quiet until something happens.
Yeah.
They are a rowdy bunch. If you watch some of the fan cams, like it's like a mosh pit in the crowd.
It's wild. And I think it's that energy that was coming out of that stadium for this goal. That's what got me.
I think, and I think that is set by the manager. The manager is, he is aggressive. I'm sure he's a nightmare for other supporters.
Yeah.
Annoying. But he has the crazy energy.
Yeah.
The players have it. It commits to the commits. There's a word. Does something to the crowd. He passes it on. There's a word that sounds like mit.
Emits.
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 I think that's right.
Yeah.
And it's true. And I think it runs through the team. There's another talking point, which was, I think it's Højlund penalty. I'm not going to talk about it. Like even how Webb showed 6 other occasions where it happened on that same game. It's not a penalty. Højlund doesn't ask for it. I'm not going to talk about Ten Hag's post match because it was like having a fan in there. It's just a stupid. And he threw Sancho, who's a world class player, under the bus.
Yeah.
I don't know what that guy's problem is. I think he was just passionate.
It was bad timing. It was
like having you in there.
It
was like watching Joe in having to do an interview after an Arsenal loss that was very like emotional. And he hit out, and like I think if you watch Howard Webb, he spoke about it. And he said, "Here are the issues of the game. Everything was relatively right.
Yeah,
the offside it's offside.
Yeah,
it's proven. The Havertz penalty probably should have been a penalty, but we're fine if they don't give them. He said Saka's one is a yellow card.
Yeah.
He said the one on Eddie is a yellow card. That is not a penalty to Højlund. Højlund.
Yeah.
The penalty, he said, if Rice goal doesn't go in, it's a penalty probably. And then the Jesus goal. He kind of rounded it up like that. The idea that the only thing I worry about for Man United is if they believe that they played very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the game plan was fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they play like that against Brighton, which is I think their next game, they're in a lot of trouble. Because it was a hot day. Arsenal did not want to press. We were very nervous. Brighton don't have the same nerves because they don't have the same pressure that comes with trying to compete for time, not losing points. Brighton against West Ham did the same thing, and Brighton went for them.
Yeah.
And again, West Ham did win because of what Man United might try to do Brighton. But I mean, they're in big trouble if they think that was a good performance. I thought it was an average. I thought we were poor.
Yeah.
I thought they were poor. And then it just got really wild in the last 10 minutes, basically. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they get on the next couple because I don't know.
It's game to game.
Time will tell. Is that all I'd say?
It's all game to game. You can't. I don't think it was a bad performance from them. I don't think it was a good performance from them. I think they had a game plan.
The game plan was good, I thought.
And it nearly worked.
And the execution nearly worked. Yeah.
I think it's too, from an outsider's perspective, and this goes for the
as Goldbridge would say, it's Manchester United.
Yeah.
You can't play like Forest.
You can't, and there is that to it. Like even when we were watching it, I was like, you can't get away with this. But again, that was their game plan for that game. I think pundits, commentators, fans. We can't get in the shoes of the manager at this level. At this level, like we were saying earlier, you have a little callback. You have to do what you have to do game by game, especially in this Premier League. There's too many big opponents now.
Yeah,
Man United won't do that next week. They won't. It's not part of the game plan next week. It was the game plan this week. Nearly worked. Again, I think someone said before they need to stop interviewing players and managers directly after games.
Because it's like when someone gets knocked down in UFC, they've stopped interviewing.
Yeah,
because I know it's different, but I think you're too emotional.
You need a minute, and I'm going to say,
because they just end up getting like fined and stuff. And
not just that. When I was watching that live, and he came to that table, the Arsenal fans behind the cameras were chanting "Who are you?" at him.
And they're whistling. It was very annoying. Like they shouldn't have them out on the field like that because it's unfair on Ten Hag.
I could feel it from the minute he got out there when the fans were jeering him.
Annoying, isn't it?
He was in the lion's den at that point, still wound up from the game. I could see why he said what he said, just because his blood was. But again, from a top-level manager, you shouldn't be letting that get to you. Like, you need to be way more composed, for not just for your sake, but for your team's sake.
Especially when his main concerns were like not real things. Like he was like, it was onside, and it's like they could present it, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because we use the same technology for every game.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's onside. And it's like it's like saying that ball was over the line. It's like, no, the technology said it wasn't. It's like, no, it was. And then he went, and Højlund was a stonewall penalty, but anyone who watches football knows that's just not a penalty in any way.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't even appeal for that. Like, I'd just be like, what? Like, it's just football.
You're not making yourself look good. You're not making your team look good by saying those things. Even if you believe them, you don't. That's not where you come out and say. A funny thing happened when he first got to the table and he started ranting. You could sense the energy changed.
Yeah.
Theo Walcott.
He's backed up a little bit.
He was almost like against Micah Richards, just staring at Ten Hag with a nervous look. Like, what's happening?
And we know that Richards is a bit of a bodyguard now because an idiot Arsenal fan, I believe it was an Arsenal fan. I assume it's an Arsenal fan.
I guess so.
Headbutted Roy Keane, which is just bizarre and awful. Yeah. And Richards was not having any of it. And what a pair to try and pick on. That seems like a recipe for disaster.
I wouldn't mess with it.
But no, I think everyone had to say Neville spoke some nice words. I think even Goldbridge, I was watching Goldbridge, and he said, it's not a penalty.
Yeah.
Havertz's one is. Saka and someone missed it, and Havertz missed a sitter. He said, we should have lost his 5-1.
Yeah.
He said, in a moment, it's emotional, it's frustrating. I wish the Garnacho one stood. But he said, it's offside. We weren't good enough. But Arsenal weren't good, and that's what worries him. He was like, they were awful.
Yeah.
And they could have won that 4 or 5-1. And again, it's all fine margins at that level because they could have won that 2-0 if we don't score 30 seconds after they did, I think.
But that's what I want to say. I appreciate, again, like we try to be a positive podcast where we do say good things about other teams still. What I don't appreciate online is a lot of the negativity that comes from, like, it's normally wound up fans that have a microphone and a camera. And I understand that. Yeah, but we're trying to be, like, I very much appreciate what Goldbridge did this week.
Yeah, I that's why I like Goldbridge. Like, I know people give him stick. He's hilarious. The stuff he said about Johnny Evans and Maguire, it's just he's just pure entertainment. Yeah. But he is, sometimes it's tough because, like, it's like, when we say there's a thing that United fans hate, which is Neville, stub his toe and he'll be like, it's the Glazers' fault.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing gag, right? They're like, you spent $1 billion on that team to play like Forest.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's the Glazers' fault. And everyone's like, not everything's the Glazers' fault. But if you're a United fan, it's not about spending money. It's how they spend the money. It's the way in which they run the club. We don't know anything about it because we don't watch that stuff.
No.
It's the same reason that as an Arsenal fan, we are frustrated with, like, decisions or the way in which they do certain things.
Yeah.
But other teams will be like, nah, they're just a soft touch. And we're like, no, we know more because we consume this content.
Yeah.
And I'm sure United, and I understand that. Whereas that's why I like Goldbridge is, he gets deep in the weeds with like deep Man United stuff that it doesn't necessarily interest me, and that helps me understand a bit of how they're saying it. But he does come at it quite an impartial, and that's what I want to do on here. That's why I'm saying the Saka one, I can see that given. The Havertz one, I don't mind if that's not given. There's a lot. I'd rather be more, as a football fan, if this was two teams I didn't know, I've given my opinion on how I felt it would have gone.
Yeah.
If Arsenal had lost this, Joe might have been more like, that was all. The guy should have been sent off. The game changes
in the moment.
Yeah, like, notoriously, Joe will be like Ten Hag in the moment.
Yeah,
and I'll be like, nah, they deserved it. Better game plan. That's just the way we are as fans. But we all have our ways of dealing with it. I
definitely don't have that same negative passion that I used to when I was younger, because I think we've all grown as fans as the game has grown now. The game is a way more complex game now than it was like 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think as fans, we now need to, like, we watch enough football to understand what's going on. We all watch enough football to know what's going on. I understand getting caught up in the moment and saying some things.
Yeah.
But it's on us as fans, though, to move with the game and understand this is why this happened. This is why this happened. Hands up, that team were the better team, things like that. Like, things that are just what we should be saying. And shout out to Goldbridge, shout out to any of the media fans out there that were positive, or they weren't necessarily going down the low-hanging fruit route. That's what we want to offer on this podcast. And again, shout out to Goldbridge I appreciate that. And we would have done the same. Like, if we were sitting here and let's say that offside goal was onside, we wouldn't be sitting here necessarily throwing out random insults, comments.
No, I'd just be upset that I felt we were the better team and we lost.
And we'd break down the game fairly. Like,
I'd like, hey, I'm just going to add this caveat. I hope we would.
Yeah.
But we'll never know. And if you listen every single week this year, you'll probably find out if what we just said was true or whether we're massive hypocrites. But again, we love football. We're positively Arsenal.
Yeah.
So hopefully Simon will be back next week. We're going to actually, because it's going to be an international break, we're going to talk a bit about whatever happens in the international break.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a Prem preview, a comprehensive one, where we're going to do our predictions and we're going to break down each game, what we think is going to happen, including the Arsenal game in a slightly more elaborate way. And we're also going to talk about the transfer window because we haven't really discussed what happened there. There's no point overloading this episode. And also the Turkish transfer window is still open. The Saudi one's still open. The Salah deal could still happen. Pepe could still go to Turkey. There's a lot of stuff. So once that's all done, next week, we'll kind of start talking about more transfer stuff. So next week, you've got Simon hopefully back, Premier League preview, transfers, and whatever happened in international break. But we are every Wednesday, Positively Arsenal, Gunners Are Us. Follow us on all social at ByTBL, Simon Miller 316. And also give us that 5-star review because that would be really important. And if you can get 5 of your friends to download it, even if they don't like football, just tell them to download it because it'd be really good. But we will see you next Wednesday, every Wednesday on the dot. Any last words, Joe?
Yes. Come on, England.
Well,